But when I watch these historic cities, Cairo, Alexandria, and Damascus, all of these cities to which I've been, and I watch the flames devouring some of these places, I just sit and say, what are they doing to themselves? What is it they're really wanting to salvage out of this? So that's a hard thing to understand. And then the loss of life. And I'll tell you this without making it too political. I sometimes wonder how some of our political leaders could be so ignorant of the real facts of what is happening out here. We are not only late in responding, but so off the mark. Take a look at what we were doing in the 60s and 70s in Pakistan. All that America did in Pakistan, and it was intervening in the Indo-Pak conflict, and Pakistan became the fair-haired boy at that time. What was accomplished with that? Today it is the most breeding ground for terrorism and hate and lack of response to the American will. It has become a hostile arena. That the same has happened in other parts of the world where we have so been misguided in the way we have attempted to deal with issues. And our understanding right now of Egypt and Syria is so skewed, so off the mark, that when I talk to people who are right in the thick of it there, they shake their heads in disbelief and wonder, are we ultimately going to become the most hated people on the face of the earth because we've misread so much and misrepresented the right corrective in all of these situations? I'm very troubled about it. I'm deeply troubled about, and I'm not talking about just one side of the aisle. Mm-hmm. I hear comments from some on both sides of the aisle, and I say to myself, how could you really make this statement about what is happening in Egypt right now? We cannot seem to get into the mindset of the Middle Eastern and the Asian when they rebel, what it is that's going on. We read it through the lens of a very cleverly crafted Western way of right and wrong and good and bad and pragmatic and non-pragmatic. That's not the way they think at all. And it's a long history. And I tell you what, if Egypt goes and Syria goes, it's only a matter of time before the West will be in total turmoil too.
I have to ask, what have we gotten wrong, and what's the real picture? What is it that we're not seeing?
I think it's hard to say a lot without getting political. Here we are 1 year into the Syrian conflict. Who are we now going to support? Who is the anti-establishment group? It is not monolithic anymore. The ones that are really creating the havoc are the ones who have no respect for these countries. This is the Beirutization of the entire Middle East. And this is what has happened. We've tried to find the only solution by sort of having a shot across the bow. That doesn't stop it. It only creates more hostility. So I think what we have done is fail to identify who the, quote, troublemakers are and who are the ones who seek a destabilized Middle East, because then you can hide. And I'll tell you, when I look at what we are siding with now and what we want to give aid to and not give aid to, it is interesting, What do we really know about some of these things that we claim to know? When I get into the front lines of these discussions with people and I sit across the table and talk, for example, where did all this chemical weaponry come from in Syria? Where did it come from? I well remember years ago having a meal with a general from Iraq in Beirut. Margie, my wife, remembers this well, telling us, do you know where our chemical weapons have gone?
Syria.
Now, whether that's right or not, I don't know 100%. But years ago, when you're being told that all of this transportation is taking place and the end result is children being slaughtered, who's doing the slaughtering? What is going on? Are we really going to solve it with sort of one fist tied behind the back? Are we going to empower the very ones who ultimately seek our own destruction? One of the hardest things for us to reconcile with It's a terrible thing. You know what Churchill once said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all other forms of government. The balkanization of Europe, in one sense, as horrific as it was, it sort of kept one strong person in power to keep people from devouring each other up. Now, the liberation of the independent countries in Europe and all has been a big plus, and you see the emergent countries there. In the Middle East, the disparate group of peoples is so real and so hostile towards each other that you almost end up needing one strong person to keep them from destroying each other. Is it ideal? No. But what happens when that goes? Well, that's what we're watching, what's happening when it goes. So it's a very, very scary thing. And certainly the short-term prospects don't look good for all of this.
And, of course, the other issue is what's happening to Christians in that area and the church.
It's very, very scary. The Christians that are being bludgeoned, that are being killed, the buildings that are being burned. You know, I like to see it when if one journalist gets hit with a rock, it's front page story, and everybody wants to talk about it. Every news, you know, our journalist was hit, and you've got all the pictures to boot and so on. When Christians and priests and people in churches are burned alive and buildings are destroyed, there's no story. Maybe a footnote somewhere, and some congressman or senator may want to take it up, but it's not a frontline story. The biggest culprit in our world today, in combination, is the tendentious nature of the news. So you never know what's happening, and the inability of the political world in the West to seem to really understand what is happening here.